Okay, so the first thing in the shaping process is to prepare your work surface, and I put a thin layer of flour, the AP flour, over the whole thing. And then what we have to do is actually get the dough that's been rising in a warm place for 3 hours, and of course I did the 2 stretch and folds. It's ready to shape. You can see it's grown about 2 or 3 times the size that it was when we started. And so now we're going to shape it. I have to sort of jog it loose and flip it over. And it should, it's supposed to drop down, which it did. It dropped out of the bowl onto the work surface. And you can see how there's lots of bubbles in it. The gluten is starting to form, and it's ready to go. So now is the time. And it's a wetter dough than it started out. But so the first step, if you're doing this at home and you're not intending to sell, you can actually cut this by, just eyeball it as 2 different pieces about the same size. At the bakery, we do it by weight because we're selling it. And so I'm in the habit of first just cutting it into a piece of about what you think is about the right size, and then weighing it to about 600. We did 600 grams. 600 grams. This weighs 836 grams, which is a little too much. I'm gonna cut some off. And so we're at about 717 grams there. I'm gonna cut off a little bit more. That's 634. Okay, that's good enough. So that's the first one at 634. Now let's see. This other one looks a bit bigger. So we've obviously made more dough than 1,200 grams. They've got 830, so there's 2 different sizes, but you know what? We're not selling it, so it doesn't matter. I'll put a little bit more here to make them a bit more even. Now what I'm gonna do is show you how to create 2 different shapes, but this is, as I say, it's a 2-step process. So now that we have the individual pieces of dough that are going to be turned into loaves, the first step in the process is to do what's called a pre-shape. And that is basically to create a rough boule. So to do that, basically all you do is you fold it in on itself and turn it around a couple of times like this, and then turn it over like this, and fold in the sides like that. And that makes your rough boule as your pre-shape. Now I'll do it again. So, okay, if you have extra pieces, just put them on top and folding in as we go around like this, and then roll it over and basically just fold it under like this, and leave them sit for about half an hour. And that's it just needs a bench rest for about half an hour. Then you'll be ready to do the final shaping. After the preliminary shaping, we're going to do the final shaping of the boules. So what I do is I bring it out to the work surface, but you can't have too much flour on the work surface, because the idea in this phase of the shaping is it's got to grip to a certain extent to be a successful shape. It has to grip onto the work surface itself just enough. It can't stick, but it has to grip. So the first part of this phase is to tamp down the dough to get rid of any of the large air holes, air pockets that might have formed. The second part is the same motion that we used to do the preliminary shape, which is folding it over, folding it over, folding it over, folding it over. I go a couple of times all the way around and then roll it over. Now, you're ready to do what's the trickiest part, and make sure that you have a little bit of flour underneath, but not too much. It has to grip, but not stick to the work surface. So to do that, what we're trying to do is to roll it and tighten the exterior skin, which will of course form the crust. And if you look closely, you can see that as I roll it like this, I'm pushing it forward so it will roll, and the exterior, the skin is going to tighten. Now let me do it again, because you do it 3 or 4 times in 90-degree increments, like that. And if there's too much flour, it's just going to slide. You don't want it to slide, you want it to roll. That's the important part here. I'm going to do it until I feel that it's tight enough. And there we go. Now, this is a nice tight boule on the top side. Now, the bottom side, we're going to just roll it a little bit to seal the bottom. And again, you have to have not too much flour under there, or it's not going to work. So when the bottom is sealed like this, and the top is taut, what I do is take one of these very cheap baskets from the local craft store, and a cloth napkin, or just a piece of cloth that you have that can't be terry cloth, can't have too big a nap to it, and line the basket with the piece of cloth. Throw a little flour in there, not too much, and then you take your shaped boule and transfer it upside down so that the bottom part is up. The bottom side has to be up as it rests overnight. So you can see it's not completely sealed, but it's close enough, it's fine. So then you fold it over all the way, and then this is going to go into a plastic bag as we put it in the fridge to basically ferment overnight. All right, so here's the boule. It's going to rise overnight in our home refrigerator. So I'm going to put it on the top shelf. The idea is these things should rise at 40 degrees Fahrenheit at most. It really should be a little bit less, but 40 degrees is fine, which is what most home refrigerators are set to anyway. And this is a very nice KitchenAid refrigerator. It's both side by side. It's not too big. We like it, and it works just fine for the bread.